During the Vietnam War, the use of non-conventional weapons represented one of the most controversial and defining aspects of the conflict, shaping military strategy, international perception, and the long-term consequences for both the environment and human populations. The United States, faced with the challenges of guerrilla warfare and dense jungle terrain that neutralized many traditional military advantages, resorted to a wide array of non-conventional tools designed to disrupt the mobility, cover, and supply networks of the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army. Among the most infamous of these tools was the widespread use of herbicidal agents, collectively referred to as defoliants, with Agent Orange being the most prominent and widely used. Introduced under the U.S. military's Operation Ranch Hand, millions of liters of this chemical mixture were sprayed over forests, mangroves, and crop fields, aiming to strip foliage that concealed enemy fighters and to destroy food sources that sustained them. The environmental consequences were catastrophic. Forests were devastated, biodiversity was severely reduced, and ecosystems suffered long-term degradation that in many cases has not fully recovered even decades later. Equally significant were the human health effects, as exposure to dioxin-contaminated herbicides caused widespread chronic illnesses, cancers, birth defects, and other intergenerational health issues affecting both Vietnamese civilians and U.S. and Allied veterans, thereby highlighting the devastating and lasting cost of chemical warfare as a non-conventional strategy. In addition to herbicides, the U.S. employed a variety of chemical compounds intended to disorient or flush out enemy combatants, including CS gas, tear gas, smoke, and incendiary chemical mixtures. While these agents were generally considered less lethal than classical chemical weapons, their use nonetheless provoked ethical debates as they were deployed in civilian-populated areas, on fortified positions, and in combination with conventional bombardments, blurring the line between combatant and non-combatant and raising questions about compliance with emerging international norms regarding chemical warfare. Beyond chemical agents, technological innovation introduced entirely new dimensions of non-conventional warfare. Remote sensing and surveillance technologies, such as seismic and acoustic sensors placed along key infiltration routes, particularly the Ho Chi Minh Trail, were designed to detect enemy movement and guide precision aerial strikes in real time. Operation Igloo White exemplified this approach, an ambitious attempt to integrate sensors with human and automated targeting to track guerrilla movements in a vast and difficult terrain, effectively turning the jungle into a monitored experimental battlefield. These sensor networks, while innovative, highlighted the tension between technological capability and actual combat effectiveness, as the complexity of the system, combined with logistical limitations and the adaptability of guerrilla forces, often limited their operational impact. Psychological and information warfare also played a central role in the use of non-conventional methods. The U.S. engaged in propaganda campaigns, leaflet drops, loudspeaker broadcasts, and psychological operations designed to undermine morale, encourage desertion, and manipulate perceptions of strength and inevitability. Massive bombing campaigns, while physically destructive, were also intended to generate psychological pressure on enemy fighters and civilian populations, demonstrating that non-conventional weapons and strategies often aimed as much at perception and behavior as at tangible military objectives. Napalm, although technically a conventional incendiary weapon, functioned as a de facto non-conventional weapon due to its indiscriminate and horrifying effects on the human body and the environment, creating iconic images that fueled international outrage and profoundly influenced public opinion about the moral costs of the war. On the other side, North Vietnamese forces and the Viet Cong developed their own non-conventional arsenal and tactics rooted in asymmetry, improvisation, and deep knowledge of the terrain. Extensive tunnel networks, booby traps, punji stake pits, tripwire explosives, and improvised grenades allowed small units to inflict maximum damage while minimizing exposure to technologically superior U.S. forces. Guerrilla fighters relied on stealth, camouflage, and mobility, blending with civilian populations, using decoys, and creating false trails to confuse and exhaust enemy forces. Their tactics extended beyond physical traps to include the manipulation of time and space in combat. Ambushes, sudden disappearances, and reappearing in unexpected areas created a constant sense of vulnerability for opposing troops. This asymmetrical use of non-conventional weapons not only imposed casualties but also psychological strain, shaping the day-to-day experience of soldiers and influencing public perceptions abroad. Collectively, these approaches, chemical, technological, psychological, and guerrilla, transformed the Vietnam War into a conflict where traditional definitions of battlefield, weaponry, and combat effectiveness were challenged and often inverted. The legacy of these practices continues to resonate. Unexploded ordnance still endangers civilians, environmental degradation persists in affected regions, and health consequences from chemical exposure remain a persistent challenge for multiple generations. Moreover, the deployment of non-conventional weapons during the war raised profound ethical and legal questions, influencing subsequent international agreements and conventions aimed at limiting chemical warfare and protecting civilian populations. The Vietnam War thus stands as a critical historical example of how non-conventional weapons, while offering tactical advantages in asymmetrical and complex terrains, carry consequences that extend far beyond the immediate battlefield, affecting ecosystems, societies, and international norms for decades, and serving as a cautionary tale about the limits of technological and chemical innovation in the context of human conflict. Both the strategies employed and their consequences underscore the intricate interplay between military necessity, technological ingenuity, ethical considerations, and long-term responsibility, illustrating how non-conventional warfare can reshape both the physical and moral landscapes of a conflict. In summary, the Vietnam War exemplifies the broad spectrum of non-conventional weapons, from chemical agents like herbicides and tear gas to sensor networks, psychological operations, and guerrilla tactics, highlighting not only their immediate military impact, but also the enduring environmental, human, social, and political repercussions that continue to inform discussions on warfare, ethics, international law, and the responsibility of nations to anticipate and mitigate the generational consequences of their strategic choices, ultimately shaping global discourse on the morality and regulation of armed conflict.